Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Spartan Shadows podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chris, and I'm joined with my two co-hosts here, Zach and Emmett. And we're here coming off the bye week, going to break down some news from around MSU athletics this week and I guess bye week, and then get you primed for the MSU Iowa match this Saturday for homecoming in East Lansing. And then that'll be it for this normal episode. We do have a special bonus episode with a special guest coming later this week. So yeah, we'll get all that out to you, and hopefully you enjoy it all. We've been having a lot of fun making it, so we appreciate everybody's support and everything that's came on so far. So we appreciate it. And guys, welcome in. Thanks for joining me tonight. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Emmett?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited for this homecoming week.
Yep, the same. And another tough game. Not as bad as the last 2 weeks, I guess I should say. But we welcome in the Iowa Hawkeyes, who are sitting at 4-2 overall, 2-1 in the Big Ten Conference. They are coming off a win last week against Washington, where they actually beat up on a pretty decent Washington in Iowa. But kick this weekend is another night game. What is this, the fifth night game in a row? Fourth night game in a row? I don't know. They're all blending together. Michigan next week will be 5 then. And then, so kick time Saturday, 7:30, obviously at Spartan Stadium. TV will be NBC and Peacock, both of them, so you don't have to just watch it on Peacock this week. That's good news. Current line is Iowa minus 6.5, and the over-under is set at 41.5. If you're one who likes to follow ESPN's matchup analytic predictor, Iowa has a 70.9% chance of winning this one over the Spartans. And that's the kind of setup for that. And then in other news, MSU athletics, we have basketball. Tom Izzo and the guys went up to Northern Michigan to play at the Superior Dome. And we had an exhibition against Northern Michigan. That was this past weekend. Zach, Emmett, what were some thoughts about the exhibition?
I thought it was a really cool opportunity, one for Coach Izzo to go back up to the UP, where obviously he grew up. He played at Northern Michigan as well. His jersey retired. He did mention that he's not getting his jersey retired because of kind of the basketball player. He was great, like good basketball player, but also like he's done awesome things for the state of Michigan, for the UP as well. Awesome to see him back up in Marquette. You could really see how much it really meant to him, just kind of how much it meant to Northern Michigan as well. Like the whole place was absolutely packed. It was more packed with Northern Michigan fans. You could definitely see that. You could definitely hear that as well. Kind of a quote-unquote away game up there, but there is one thing that I think everyone up there would agree with, and that was obviously cheering and celebrating Coach Izzo, and I think that's just really cool. Basketball-wise, it was an exhibition. Like, is there really a ton to take away from it? You can take away some stuff. Like, should we say, like, a lot of concern? Not really, honestly. Again, it's exhibition. Even in his press conference, Coach Izzo basically said that maybe they didn't play extremely well, partially because of, like, everything that was kind of going on. Like, it was more of a kind of like a celebration of who Izzo is, the person he is, the coach he is. So overall, I thought it was okay. You saw Kurt Ting make some shots. I thought Jace Richardson looked really good, honestly. I think those two are going to be impactful players this year, especially if Jaden Akins doesn't kind of turn into that guy or continues to kind of be up and down throughout his performances. I can see maybe a couple of those minutes getting eaten up by one of those two players. And one player that honestly was a little, I don't want to say surprised by, but actually played pretty decent is Simone Sapala. Like, I honestly thought defensively he did pretty well in this game, rebounded pretty well as well. Now, again, some of these guys here spacing is like 6'6", 6'7". Like, you don't really have a lot of Division I college basketball teams that start that way. you can look at like Villanova and a couple other like these small schools as well that might do that. But I thought Simone Zapala actually looked pretty good overall defensively. So going to be interesting to watch there. He did start in this game, and then obviously Jackson Kohler makes a three in this game, which is something that we've been seeing him try throughout this year. So we'll see what's going on there. But overall, just a cool celebration of Coach Izzo. I don't really think you can take too much away from it. I don't think there's too much to be concerned about either. Now we can talk about that in a few weeks once they start playing like Ferris State or Monmouth. If it starts looking this way offensively at that point, then we can talk about that. But again, they still have a few weeks of practice, and this is pretty early on for an exhibition in the year. So not super concerned there. How about you, Emmett?
Yeah, I was about to say the same as you, Zach. It's just one of those, it's super early in the year, like, super early for any exhibition. Besides those closed door ones that we always hear about, and no one really hears how the teams look because it's just to the programs themselves.
Yeah.
So there's not a ton to take away, I would say. And like you said, Zach, Coach Izzo said in his press conference, yeah, maybe I was also a bit of a distraction because of all the stuff surrounding me, which isn't, Coach trying to make it about himself as much as just, hey, obviously the team knows that most of this is more than a game. So I also wouldn't buy too much stock and, say that the freshmen are going to become the superstars for the program this year or anything. But I think it was a really cool celebration and a standalone event, so a good way to get some exposure to Northern Michigan and Michigan State basketball heading into the year. But like you said, Zach, there's not a ton to take away just because, we still got, what, 3 weeks till tip off for the regular season?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I kind of agree with everything you guys said. I don't even think we mentioned the final score of the game, just because exhibitions, you can't take a ton out of them. MSU did win, what was it, 70-53, I believe. And so it's nice to see. Obviously, a win is not a bad thing, exhibition or not, but it's just basically. It's a good way to get out, get some minutes, get some playing time for the guys who may not see as much playing time once the season starts. And yeah, I just I thought it went pretty well. I didn't get to watch all of it. Fall time of the year has been busy for me, but I did, from what I get to see, it looked like some good run from exactly the players you echoed. Another one that I don't think we really mentioned too much, Jeremy Fears. I like watching him play basketball. He's just, I think, going to be a really good point guard for MSU. And so anytime I get a chance to do that, it's good for me. So he looked good, and it's nice to see him really starting to round back into playing shape after his injury last year. So, yeah, I basically everything you guys said. I was surprised with Zapala a little bit in a pleasant way, and I thought it was really cool. It was a neat thing to do, not only to give Coach Izzo his flowers, but also seeing the Superior Dome with the basketball court in it and having Northern get a little bit of attention that they maybe wouldn't get from year to year. Also pretty cool. My fiance went to Northern, so I got it. I know she was excited to hear all that. So it was cool to see, and so I was happy they got to do it. And Coach Izzo got shouted out. I know Steve Mariucci was trying to do as much as he could to honor his best friend there. So it was really fun to see, and I thought it was a pretty cool atmosphere. So, anything else on the basketball game?
No, I was just going to say, just shout out to Northern Michigan, Coach Mackerjack. They did a great job up there. Really, really cool to see. But not the only big game that Michigan State had that weekend. We got Michigan State hockey, honestly,
Yes.
getting their season started out with the Boston College #2 team in the country. Lose game one, obviously, at home. Never the start you honestly want. But get a comeback win in game two, splitting a series against a really, really good Boston College team that was runner-up of a national championship last year and #2 team in the country. I believe both teams in the most recent poll stayed at number 2 and number 4 because of that. So not very much movement there, but you always love watching Michigan State hockey get a big win against one of the best teams in the country. I think that kind of shows that Michigan State is in the ranking for a reason, is that they can beat a team like Boston College. And obviously you have guys like Trey Augustine that is really fun to watch. I believe Charlie Stramel. I might be yeah, he had 2 huge goals in game 2 as well. The transfer, I believe, transferred in from, was it Wisconsin? Or I know I know he definitely transferred into Michigan State. But big win on Saturday there. They have an exhibition game this week as well. But love watching Michigan State hockey get a big win at home, and love watching Coach Nightingale, what he's doing over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to cover. Oh,
I was just going to say you were right. Charlie Stamel did come in from Wisconsin. Minnesota Wild draft pick, by the way.
I was actually fortunate enough to cover that game for Shadows, and yeah, Charlie Stramel, he was actually one of the players selected for press conferences at the end, and when he was asked about his 2-goal performance, he's like, honestly, I think that's the first time in a while I've gotten 2 in a game, and Stramel was one of the difference makers. Of the goals MSU allowed, I believe it was 4-3 final. Both times it was two of the 3 times there was a breakaway, which was an issue that Matt had said they struggled with during the first game when he was at the rink. So something to watch. And Red Savage said in his press conference on Thursday night, or Friday night, the first game, that they had let Augustine out to dry. One of them was just an unlucky play. Larson breaks a stick and just led to a breakaway on the other end against one guy who's trying to catch up and one guy with no stick. So, unlucky break, but still defensive lapse. It was just very enjoyable to see a Michigan State athletics team take down Boston College after going out to Chestnut Hill last month, and we know how that game turned out, so it was really nice to get to see MSU hockey in action and improving to 3-1 on the year.
Yeah, and really even to beat BC hockey, because we played them twice last year and we're not successful. I know I mentioned it in our little hockey preview. Boston College is probably the best team we're going to play, pound for pound roster up and down all year. Yes, certain teams get hot at certain times. You'll maybe run into a hotter goalie at some point. Jacob Fowler is a real deal. Like Jared and I had talked about, that's one of the few goalies in the league where every night as an MSU hockey fan, you should feel like Trey Augustine has the upper edge. And that's not the case with Boston College. And so they're just loaded top to bottom with talent, and so getting a win against them was big for the program, to be honest with you. Adam Nightingale preaches that his team can compete with anybody, and you know, the guys, I'm sure they believe it and everything, but to actually see the results and beat a team to Boston College's calibers, it's always does good things for a program. So shout out. I know Trey played well. He would tell you he wanted a few of them back, but Jeremy and I had talked a little bit about the defense was going to be the question mark going in, and unfortunately, you've seen some mistakes pop up from time to time, and unfortunately, it just takes one misstep in hockey, and with a team that talented, it's in the back of the net. So overall, I thought it was a good performance. You'd like the first game to go a little bit different. It got a little out of hand fairly quick, but you know, that's going to happen sometimes. So I thought it was a really good job by the boys to bounce back Saturday night and regroup and put that behind them very quickly and get a big win. So I was excited to see it, and shout out to Coach Nightingale and the guys. That was really awesome to see, and hopefully it springs some positive momentum, really just moving forward, you know, and really overall coming down the stretch. I mean, the season's in play. I know we get to go out to Canisius next weekend, which will be another fun trip for the hockey team. Not a team you normally see us go out and play very often. So that will be kind of cool to see. This weekend, I believe we have Windsor University. I believe just one game this weekend. So that is at Mon, and that'll be a tune-up for them for the next weekend. It's something MSU should be able to play well, but you never know. A lot of these Canadian colleges and universities, they don't have a lot of I guess press and play out here. You don't really know of a lot of them, but we all know hockey's life in Canada, so you get players that really love the game and want to play. So should be a tough task, and certainly not one to overlook, but I think MSU might be able to pull it out tomorrow night. That game is 6 p.m. at Munn for anybody interested in wanting to go to that, and it is on Big Ten Plus, I believe. So other than hockey, we wanted to hit on some unfortunate football news. Even though they were on bye, we did find out just a recent couple days that tight end Michael Manousis is out for the year. I believe. I mean, you said that was with a knee injury. Shoulder. That's right. I was getting him switched. So shoulder. So tough to see him out for the season. I know he was developing into a really good piece along the offensive line to help out, especially blocking. He's been a really, really good blocker for us. So our offensive line already banged up. We could use all the blocking help we could get sometimes. So guys, what are your thoughts on Michael unfortunately having to shut it down for the year and have surgery?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. We've seen quite a few players on this team already been basically declared that they're done for the year. So never easy when you lose a player like Michael Masunas. He was, like you're saying, Chris, he was someone that was making an impact, especially when the offensive line really has struggled blocking there. But yeah, just going to have to be one of those situations that you say just next man up, and you're going to start to see some of these other tight ends kind of take over that position, maybe have to do a little bit more blocking than they're used to. Maybe will help them for the future as well. But yeah, I think it's going to be really, really important for some of these tight ends to get better at blocking. And I think that's what this bye week is probably is for that, but it's also to get healthier as well going into this Iowa game.
Yeah, for me, Michael Masunas was the unsung hero of the team through the first 2 weeks. He provided a spark in the receiving game against Florida Atlantic when the team was struggling. I believe he finished leading the team in receiving yards that game. Additionally, during Nick Marsh's breakout performance against Maryland, on one or both of the deep passes, Masunas was in a max protection scheme, so blocking for Aiden Childs, and he locked his man up and was able to help prevent Childs from getting any pressure when he completed the deep throw. So Masunas was arguably a player who was not on many radars to start the season. Everyone thought it would be Jack Velling and Brendan Parachek. And the staff themselves said that Parachek and Masunas had a really tight battle during training camp, and Masunas edged him out. But they felt confident enough. There were multiple sets where Velling would come out for a play or two, and it would be Parachek and Masunas. Now they're going to have to kind of piece together it, but also tight end is one of our position groups that has better depth. We have Tyneil Hopper, who's played exclusively at fullback this year. He could move back onto the line and I believe he's a seventh, eighth year senior. He definitely has value in the blocking game. And then Adamola Falai also behind Parachek. Falai is more of a receiver, but multiple options behind Masunas with him out for the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wish Michael the best in recovery, and hopefully that gets us a speedy recovery and back at 100% for spring ball and going into next year. But like you said, I mean, we do have some depth. I think we had talked about it it wasn't the FAU game. It was maybe the Prairie View game where 7 or 8 tight ends ended up getting playing time. So we do have a lot of
5 tight end in the first series.
Yeah, so we do have a lot of options in the tight end room. Obviously, Jack Belling's been our anchor from the, I guess, in a leadership standpoint, and on the receiving end, he's starting to get more involved in the offense. So hopefully, some of the other bodies can step up and help out in protection and some other stuff too. But unfortunately, injury is just tough to hear, but Michael, get well soon. We hope for a speedy recovery. A couple things I just wanted to bring up really quickly. We don't necessarily need to hit on before we get more into Iowa. MSU football 2025 commit Derek Simmons from Frankenmuth received a pretty good rankings buff in the 24/7 Sports rankings. He's now considered a 4-star, so congratulations to Derek. And then also former Spartan football player Jacoby Windman was signed by the Panthers. So congratulations on getting a crack at making an NFL roster with the Panthers. Congrats to Jacoby. And then the last thing I had, and you guys can touch on any of these three, MSU basketball MSU basketball prospect, Cam Ward. We are on commitment watch. He was originally supposed to announce his decision October 30th. He has moved that up to October 22nd, which will be next week, probably before we can get you guys another episode out of our regularly scheduled episodes. He's deciding between Michigan State and Virginia. A lot of chatter that he's MSU bound potentially, and then Virginia's head coach Tony Bennett just decided to retire today. So maybe that's a good sign for us. I don't know, but Cam, if somehow you watch this, look at Zach's background. We appreciate the green and white here. So come on home to East Lansing. But those are just the last bits and pieces of news I had. Do you guys got anything about either Cam, Jacoby, or Derek, or anything else I mentioned?
I don't really have anything else. I'm sure we'll probably talk about it all next week when it comes up, when that decision gets finalized. But outside of that, just kind of going back to offense for Michigan State, I think that's going to be a key for this game against Iowa.
Yeah, also quick shout out before we get into the Iowa game. Nick Marsh also was named a true freshman All-American for midseason at wide receiver. So quick shout out to him before we get into this Iowa preview.
Yes, absolutely. Congratulations, Nick, and that's an outstanding accomplishment. So we're happy to hear that. And so we'll turn the page over to Iowa. Like I had mentioned, 7:30 kick on Saturday. Homecoming in East Lansing, one of our favorite times of the year. Emmett will be in the press box as usual, giving press updates and press conferences after the game. We have that on deck. We have really a pretty decent Iowa team. Unfortunately, the labels with Iowa over the past few years, not the greatest offense in the world, pretty great defense. They're starting to hold true, although this offense this year has produced a few more points than what we're used to an Iowa offense seeing. I did see a stat that Iowa has not won in East Lansing since 2012, so hopefully that's a trend that maybe can continue. They did beat Michigan State last year at Kinnick, and an unfortunate last few minutes close game, but did not work out in our favor, and that's probably all I'll mention on that one. But it should be a tightly contested game. As I mentioned, Iowa's a 6.5 point favorite with the over-under at 41.5. One thing I'm looking for, just real quick before I let the boys dive into it a little bit more, you have the stout Iowa defense being able to really shut down a lot of the offenses they played, and then what Michigan State's defense can do against Cade McNamara, yes, that Cade McNamara, and the Iowa offense. As I stated earlier, Iowa just hung 40 on Washington last week. Maybe a little bit of a big game hangover you can think of because Washington was coming off their big win against Michigan, but Iowa put up some points, and they put it up quickly, and we know Cade McNamara has the tools to be an effective quarterback, but hasn't maybe put it together all the way, to put it nicely. I don't want to sound like the Michigan hater because he went to Michigan, but we know how the last time he was at Michigan, how that went again when he was in East Lansing. So maybe we could get some good luck of that. So it will be interesting to see. I want to look at Iowa's running game against MSU's defense, and I know we'll talk about it more, or you guys will. Oregon was really able to pound the rock against us defensively. Iowa's run game is very effective as well. I believe they've won over 200 yard rushing in 5 of 6 games so far this year. So their running back, Caleb Johnson, is averaging 156 yards a game and is pretty effective. So my biggest matchup is going to be that Spartan defense trying to shut down Caleb Johnson. So I'll hand it off to you guys. What do you think is going to be keys for this game?
I just want to start out by saying I think last week Iowa scoring 40 points against Washington is probably a one-off situation. I just don't think Iowa running game possibly there. I just don't think this Iowa offense is going to ever score 40 points again. If now that I say that, what should happen against Michigan State? I just look completely dumb by saying that, but it's one time, so I'm not going to hold them to that point that as of right now. With that being said, though, I do think that Caleb Johnson is going to be kind of the big factor in this game. Like you're saying, Chris, he is their offense. He is one of their better offensive weapons on this team. Basically, whenever he gets the ball, he's going to find a hole. Honestly, he doesn't really get tackled behind the line a whole lot of times. Averages a little less than 8 yards per carry, 12 touchdowns as well. Basically, a main offense. Cade McNamara, like you're talking about, Chris, he has a little less than 800 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. This is kind of the Iowa offense that we have gotten to know a little bit better than what they have been in the past. That's because he has a couple of guys he throws to. Jacob Gill is the leading receiver for this team, 169 yards. We also have tight end Luke Leitchie, has 19 receptions, 156 yards. And then Reese Vander Zee is their third receiver. Leads the team, I believe, in catching and touchdown receptions with 2, has 129 yards there as well. So as you can tell, this Iowa team is very much well known for running the ball. It's also an older offensive line as well. I feel like that's kind of being not talked about enough, is that it seems like the last couple of years Iowa has had a pretty young offensive line. Now they're a lot more experienced, so that's definitely going to be interesting to watch. But it's against Michigan State defensive line outside of the last 2 weeks against Ohio State and Oregon that have been pretty good. They weren't really great the last 2 weeks, but I also think that kind of factors in the kind of their offenses as well. I think Ohio State and Oregon can throw the ball a little bit better than what Iowa can. Now, where would I put Iowa's offensive line ranked between those? I think it'll be pretty good. I think they're up there with them just because Iowa's been an offensive line factory for a really long time, as well as tight end. So I think their offensive line is going to be really good. If they can just prevent Caleb Johnson from hitting the deep runs, if they can prevent Cade McNamara from just playing extremely well, basically they just need to make him not efficient. Honestly, is when Iowa loses is when Cade McNamara is not efficient. And if they can make Cade McNamara not efficient and can prevent Caleb Johnson from doing anything that really kind of hurts Michigan State too much, I think this is going to be a game that Michigan State could very much win at home.
Yeah, much like what Zach said, this is a game that Caleb Johnson will decide. I believe he is starting to get second-round draft hype, was the latest I saw. Late second-rounder was one projection I saw. Personally, I think he's a much better running back than Oregon's Jordan James, who put up almost 160 in the first half against us. Granted, this game is going to be a matter of how the MSU defense plays. I know we mentioned it in the Oregon preview. It's going to be Maverick Hansen. We're going to need someone like him making big plays. We cannot have another game of Cal Halliday having 10 missed tackles and a sub-37 grade on PFF. Those are two. Those kind of help doom us against the Ducks. They also have a couple other running backs, Kamari Moulton and Jason Patterson, both averaging over 30 yards per game, which isn't a lot, but when you factor in that they're averaging like six carries a game, that's 5 yards a pop, which a little bit of a cause for concern if the Spartan defense cannot hold all of them. So it's just going to be a matter of how this defense can play against Caleb Johnson. I personally, this might be a really bad take, but I am not concerned at all about Cade McNamara. Zach and I had a nice little back and forth before we started recording about this offense. Cade McNamara has not had the greatest year, to say the least, and Chuck Brantley and Edwards' corner pairing has been gaining traction. I know Angelo Gross got picked on a lot last week against Oregon, so it would be a matter of how the slot game fares if Cade McNamara is going to hurt this team this Saturday. So I feel all right about it. I won't outright commit to a Michigan State win, especially considering our struggles against the run against Oregon and some of our struggles against the run against Ohio State. But at the same time, I do not feel like this is a uphill battle like the Ohio State and Oregon games were, where we started off thinking we were going to lose by 20.
Yeah, same. And we had mentioned in this, breaking up the schedule into segments. Initially, the Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa, Michigan stretch might have been the point where Iowa is maybe the game you think you could potentially steal when the season started. I kind of think that's also the case. I know Michigan hasn't looked their best either, so potentially in the rivalry game, in the thick of that may be a winnable opportunity. But overall, I think Iowa has its quirks, I guess, and its vulnerabilities. So hopefully it's something we can exploit. I know it's going to be a matter of hopefully health for MSU's offense. I know the wide receiver room has been decimated with injuries this year. I think the bye week will hopefully do some good. Hopefully, I know Nick Marsh played in the last game, but maybe give him a chance to get some rest and recover a little bit more, just to help maybe move the ball a little bit easier, because Iowa's defense is hard to move the ball on. Their cornerback, Jamari Harris, has one of the highest PFF ranking among starting quarterbacks. He's only allowed like 10 catches on, I think, 27 or 28 targets. So I don't know who he's going to line up, if he's going to just shadow Nick Marsh all game or if he's going to, stick to a side of the field. So it'll be interesting to see what Coach Lindgren and Jonathan Smith try to do to free up some receiver space. But hopefully, I think if we play a sound game, limit the turnovers, obviously, I'm going to sound like a broken record there, but if we can limit the turnovers and make smart decisions with the ball, it's certainly a game that you can see MSU being in the fourth quarter and maybe trying to pull out a win on. So I don't know if I'm going to necessarily go out and say the spread's low enough to where I don't know if I say they cover, but that's not... I mean, it's going to be within that 7-point range, I think. So I could see MSU covering the spread easily if you're a betting type. I don't know if I'm going to put money on it, but I'm just saying you could. If you do want to make a bet, I'm more partial to the over hitting. 41.5 is just a low number. I know Iowa does not do offense very well historically, but between the two teams, I think 42 points is something you can get up to. So if you're in for betting, there's Chris's betting tip. Maybe I would go over 42, or over 41.5. But I'm excited. It would be nice to get back to football and hopefully get through maybe injury free, so we can put a full effort into the school down the road next week. So
Exactly, and I think one thing that you pointed out, Chris, that is, I don't want to say the deciding factor in this game, but it's turnovers. You have to protect the ball. Like, you cannot turn over the ball against this Iowa team and expect to win. They have 7 interceptions, 7 forced fumbles, 4 fumbles recovered on the season. Like, if you protect the ball, and that's one thing that this Michigan State team has struggled to do, this Michigan State team has shown that they can drive the ball against good defenses. Like, look at Ohio State. Look how much money they put into that defense. What did Michigan State do against Ohio State that they haven't done in years? They drove the ball. Why did Michigan State not score as many points against Ohio State? Because they could not finish drives. It was turnovers. It was one bad play, a penalty. If this Michigan State team can drive the ball against Ohio State, not saying that Ohio State's defense is as good as Iowa, but they can protect the ball. If they can get the ball to their playmakers, if they can give Aiden Childs time, again, that's key. Aiden Childs has to have time. His wide receivers have to get separation. If he can get them the ball without one fumbling it or two throwing an interception, I think this is going to be a little bit of a higher scoring game than what we've seen against Iowa in the past. One thing that's been nice about Aiden Childs, though, as of recently, and maybe saying this is going to come bite me back after this game, but think about the games that he's played recently. How many of his throws have really been kind of interceptable balls? Like, against Oregon, he didn't really have very many, if at any. Ohio State didn't have a whole ton either. Like, he's done a good job of not throwing it into, like, double coverages outside of kind of past that Boston College game, which we won't talk about after that. But he's been able to make smart decisions throwing the ball for the most part. Now, can he hold on to the ball? That is another question. He turned it over against Oregon really early on. MSU could have been up 7-0 to start that game. Does that change that game? No. But I think starting 7-0 against Oregon could have made things a little bit more interesting. So protect the ball, and please, for once, protect the ball. Win the turnover battle. If you win the turnover battle, Michigan State wins this game.
To build on what Zach was saying, I actually did look this up before the podcast. Aiden Childs in the last two games he's played, so Oregon and Ohio State, has, I believe, one interceptable pass, which was the pass picked off by Denzel Burke, where it kind of looked like he couldn't decide between checking it off to Velling or throwing it to Foster, and it kind of ended up in no man's land where Burke was. So that was the only interceptable throw, and that was, remember, 2 games ago for Ohio State. He did not have a single interceptable pass, according to the PFF analytics, which we always love it when it favors us and hate it when it's against us, so take that with a grain of salt. But, yeah, so, and also like Zach said, Aiden Childs' fumbles now have kind of become the new interception, what the interceptions were at the start of the year, with his fumble against Ohio State in the red zone, where, to be fair, his face mask was getting ripped off. And then his less excusable goal line fumble against Oregon, which could have made the game more interesting. Like Zach said also, though, not really affected the outcome. This offensive line does have a tough task ahead of them, though. Through 6 games, the Hawkeyes are averaging 2.5 sacks per game. They're at 15 sacks even. So this offensive line is going to have to buckle up, especially we aren't getting back Gavin Brocious or Christian Phillips. We will be getting back Stanton Ramil. But this team is going to need to buckle up because it's not going to be the Oregon front 7, but it's also not going to be the Prairie View A&M front 7, for example. So this team has a lot to play against. I'm excited for it, but I could see this becoming a defensive struggle. I could see this very well being a 21-14, a 24-14 game, as opposed to an offensive shootout.
Yeah, and to kind of echo the defensive line, if the offensive line can play consistent and use this game also as a better learning experience, I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but look at the defensive front that's coming in, or that we're going to see next week in Ann Arbor. I mean, 2 of the top, probably 2 defensive tackles in the country reside in that other city that we don't like to talk about. So it's not an easy task the next 2 weeks. Again, both Iowa and Michigan have stout defenses. Maybe the schedule lightens up a little bit after then, but Indiana and Illinois have been playing pretty good football of late too. So we're getting into the meat of that Big Ten schedule where it's power football, it's running game, it's limiting turnovers, it's defensive battles. Weather's going to start being a factor at some point, so we're going to have to really buckle in, like you said, and limit the mistakes and limit the poor execution. I think Aiden's done a lot better in his decision making, so hopefully that continues. Knock on wood, and then I don't want to make it sound like we're just picking on Aiden. The whole team's had some fumbleitis at some times too. So running backs, it's got to make sure we're protecting the ball, and special teams returning game too. So I guess if we don't have anything else to add, we can move into our score predictions. I don't know if you guys have anything else. I can start us off on score predictions. So, okay, so I'm going to go. I mean, I just said I like the over, so we got to go at least 42 points scored here. But I do think it stays close. I'm not sure I'm ready to pick an MSU outright win. I think it can happen. I'm trying to dial back the expectations just a little bit because I know how beat up we are. And but that being said, giving Jonathan Smith 2 weeks to prepare might be just exactly what we needed. For right now, I will do Iowa 30, Michigan 20, or Michigan State 27.
That's a pretty high scoring game. I like it though.
I got to root for points. I said I got to root for points. So I said pick the over. So 30-27. First time touchdown. Yeah, bet the over. First time touchdown. We'll go Chuck Brantley pick 6. Do I want to do it? It's Cade McNamara. Does Chuck get his does get Cade one more time? I don't know if I'll say first score. I do think Chuck gets an interception. I don't know if that's bettable or not, but let Chuck get Cade one more time just for old time's sake. First time touchdown. Let's go Aiden Childs rushing. It worked well for me week 1. We'll stick with it.
I'm pretty sure you've picked that. I'm pretty sure every time you've picked that, you've actually had it close to being right, I believe.
I picked him for Oregon. It should have happened.
And I believe, didn't you pick that for Ohio State? And wasn't it true against Ohio State?
It might have been.
He picked it for FAU, which would be right if it wasn't for the Daquan Douth safety.
Yeah, that was still right.
Yeah. Well, first touchdown. First touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, but first touchdown of the year. But yeah, I'm going not that high of a score. Like I was saying earlier, I don't think Iowa puts up 40 points. They put up 37 points. That prediction for me would look really, really bad. So, Chris, for my sake, I hope they don't score 37 points. But for betting over, that would be great. But I actually do think they're going to get the over as well. I'm going to drop it down a little bit. I think it's going to be a 24-20 win for Iowa. I just think Iowa has a little bit too much for Michigan State. I think it's going to be one of those games where it comes down to the very, very end. Just Michigan State just runs out of gas at the end. It's just going to be that's just kind of what a lot of these games are probably going to be, is kind of coming down to that last drive. And I think Iowa just has a little bit too much defensively in this. I think if they need to get a stop, they do. I would love to see Aiden Childs lead a game-winning touchdown at the end. I just don't think it happens in this game. I think he's going to get plenty of them in his career. I don't want to say that, but I think Iowa just has a little bit too much here. Offensively, I'm going to go with, obviously, please score a touchdown, Jack Velling. Please, at some point, score a touchdown. I just need one, honestly, at this point. Just give me one this year. Give me against Iowa. Honestly, just give me against Michigan. Give me the game-winning touchdown against Michigan. And that is where I'm at, honestly. But we'll talk about that matchup next week.
I'll take that.
Yeah, for me, maybe I'm the negative one here, I guess, but I feel like it's going to be, as the one who's actually going to be attending the game, I feel like it's going to be an under just because I'm there. I'm feeling like 24-14 Iowa. I don't know how to feel about this offense after outside of the Nick Marsh completion and the garbage time gains. I didn't really see much against the Oregon defense, and I feel like Iowa might be a little bit on par, maybe a little bit worse. So thus, Michigan State maybe finds a way to squeak 2 touchdowns in. Also, I don't know how this team is going to play coming off of a bye week where they practiced exactly once, which slight concern for me, but I do not know necessarily bye week practices. Maybe that's something Chris and I talked to Matt Seibert about. But
Yeah, maybe we can get you something.
Yeah, then we'll try to provide an update either on our Twitter, on our socials, something of the like maybe tomorrow.
Throw it in our bonus episode.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about how the team's going to do. This is a 2-game sprint before another bye week, I believe, or is it 3-game sprint before bye?
Somewhere right around there. I know we've got one.
Yeah, we got a November bye.
Yep. So
I do not know how this team is going to fare against Iowa. I was feeling a lot better till they put up 40 against Washington last week, and now I'm back to that spiral of how many games is this MSU team going to win. Just a reminder that Michigan State needs to steal one against Indiana, Iowa this weekend, Michigan, or Illinois in order to, and then take care of business against their other 2 opponents with Purdue and Rutgers, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, to go bowling this year. So this is one of those crucial matchups for us, but I do not know if the Spartans will get it done. I'm feeling 24-14. I'll say first touchdown. I'll say give me KLA. K'Ron Lynch-Adams rushing touchdown.
One thing none of us really know, and I'll reiterate it, we don't know how this team's going to respond after a bye week with Jonathan Smith at the helm. Like Emmett said, practices were limited just to try to get bodies healthy. The rest may do us good, may show some rust. We don't know. So we're all kind of interested to see how this works. And just to kind of clarify Emmett's point here, we do have that November bye, the weekend of November 8th. So we play Iowa at home, at Michigan next week, at home against Indiana, bye at Illinois, home against Purdue, home against Rutgers. So that's your schedule for the rest of the year. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. But hopefully it's good. Homecoming will give the boys a little extra pep in their step. Big home game. Spartan Stadium will be rocking, of course, because it always is. If you're going, be extra loud. Cheer. Make it hard for Cade to hear. Yeah, it's just it's going to be a good atmosphere regardless. We know that. So that'll be it for today's episode. Sorry, this one may have went a little bit longer than we had thought, but we appreciate you guys hanging out with us and watching. We, as mentioned, will have a bonus episode coming out before game time with a special guest. We will cover some mid-season awards and MVPs and players we thought stood out and all that sort of fun stuff. So we will have that coming to you before game time as well. This episode will also be live as soon as we can get it up for you guys. And then back next week on a regularly scheduled program for rivalry week, recapping Iowa and getting us ready against the old Michigan team. So I know we're all excited for that. So before I let you guys go, any last thoughts?
One last thing. If you're up around campus, make sure Friday they play hockey plays. If you want to go to Munn, catch a good game. They just celebrated their 600th win against Boston College also. Well, 600th win at Munn Ice Arena against BC. Additionally, I believe women's volleyball plays Friday night. So if you're listening to this and it's before the game time, go and give them a watch. Check off that bucket list as an MSU student if you're a student listening.
Yep. And homecoming always has fun festivities around campus the whole weekend. So partake, tailgate responsibly for those of you partaking in alcoholic beverages. And enjoy. We'll be probably live tweeting some and giving you all the updates we can think of. Emmett will probably have some post-game reactions for you. So we'll try to get all that to you guys as soon as we can. In the meantime, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Follow us on all of our socials. They're always linked per usual, Apple and Spotify podcasts as well, and then on YouTube. So we've got it covered pretty much wherever you want to listen to us. So we appreciate it, and thanks for the support, you guys. And as always, go green.
Go white.